Welcome to another episode of Let's Talk About It Live, where we deep dive into the conversations women should be having about their hormones, but often don't. Joining me for this important conversation is founder of Healthy Home, Dr. Amber de Grasse.
Hello, Lindy. So good to be here today.
Amber, thanks so much for joining us. As always, we appreciate your insights and your invaluable knowledge that you bring to these calls. Amber has a doctorate in energy psychology and is certified in hormone health. If you missed last week's episode, this is a continuation. So this is part two. What we talked about was how hormones impact your sexual health in both men and women, and things that we can do to really help build our relationships at home. And so I'm excited to continue this conversation. If you'd like to go back and watch episode one or part one of this episode, you can find it on Healthy Home's Facebook page, Vimeo, or YouTube channels. All right, Amber, let's dive right in. So an important hormone to sexual health, there's actually two that I want to talk about or start with, estrogen and testosterone. Talk to us about how they play a role in our sexual health.
Yes, this is such an important topic right now. I'm so glad we're doing this because as women, we have so many things happening in our life and men as well. So there are estrogen receptors on every single organ of our body. And you've heard me say this over and over again, but many of our symptoms are due to estrogen withdrawal. And if you sink that in a little bit, it starts to make sense that you're having all these symptoms in your body and that we have these receptors everywhere. You know, things like vaginal dryness, vaginal itching, painful intercourse. And 50 to 70% of women are going to experience vaginal symptoms. And here's the interesting part, and we've also discussed this. Most of the studies done are by men for men. And so it's only been in the recent years that we're bringing a lot of this to the light. So there has been over 500,000 studies, as an example, on men genitalia. 500,000, and only 2,000 on women's clitoris. And that's the only organ in the women's body that is there for pleasure. It's only 2,000. And that function alone has over 10,000 nerve endings. And so you got to start looking at why this is such an important topic for us to be bringing to light right now. And so that women don't feel alone when they're having these symptoms in their body. But testosterone plays an important role for men and women when it comes to sexual well-being. It's there for libido, arousal, and orgasm. These are huge indicators of what's happening because we have these receptors in our body. And there are some ways to naturally increase your testosterone. And I'm just going to give you 3 tips today. But one is get 7 hours sleep. If you get 7 or more hours sleep, you help build your testosterone in your body. A second one is working out with weights. So, if you use heavy weights, we talked about this a few times, that's important to building testosterone naturally in the body. And a third tip is getting good fats in our diet. So having something like the Mediterranean diet in your body is going to help bring up testosterone for both men and for women.
Okay, I want to grab onto something that you talked about, and I want to deep dive a little bit further. So you talked about women's genitalia and the changes that it goes through during this time. I want to know more. Tell us not only why our body's changing, but why are we also having other changes?
Oh my gosh, we are not talking about this enough. I have my jaw on the floor when I watched this at Harvard. So I have a PhD, I'm not an MD, but I was watching and there was a group of people who are medical doctors who didn't even know this. So Rachel Rubin is a sexual expert, health expert, and she's like, look, genitals change because they are hormone sensitive structures. We have estrogen and testosterone receptors around our vulva. And so hormones really matter deeply here. It's why balancing hormones is so critical to the body. But this is what she said that just made the whole room go quiet. She said, we grow labia minora, which is our inner labia when we're in puberty, but we lose it in menopause. And so everybody was like, what? Come again? We lose a part of our anatomy in menopause if we're not balancing our hormones. And that is correct, and it's also the result of it exposes your bladder tissue. So it's one of the reasons women are getting really frustrated because they have UTIs, but then they go to the doctor, they do a swab or they do a test and it comes back negative. And they're like, I have to pee all night long. I feel this constant urge. And it's also one of the reasons why women are having painful intercourse. It's rubbing up against the bladder area. And I think this was a really powerful takeaway. It's also younger women who are having trouble using tampons. What they don't tell people is that if you use birth control pills, it lowers testosterone, and they can now lower their labia minora, tricky word, at a younger age. And it's like, why are we not telling? This is such an important part of our anatomy. Why has nobody told us about it?
I appreciate that you're shedding a light on this because it normalizes it a little bit more, right? Have these conversations, be prepared as we're raising other, women to have these talks. And so I appreciate it. And I also wasn't aware of this. So I'm learning with you and I love this. I want to talk also about, so all these symptoms are happening in your body. We're feeling like less sexy. We're feeling like all of these things are happening to us. And I've learned that there's a powerful anti-aging benefit to having sex and having an orgasm. Tell us about this.
Yeah, so Marissa Peer has helped thousands of women have babies. And as she did, what was important is that she had all the studies done. The only purpose in nature is to recreate ourselves. And so whether you want children or not, that's where evolutionary unravel has happened. And so we're the only species in the planet that has sex for pleasure. If you see a buffalo in a field and it's a pregnant buffalo, nobody else will go near it. And so our primitive brain is very clear. You're having a lot of sex to make a baby. Even if you're 50, 60, 70 years of age, your primitive brain thinks you're trying to get pregnant. And it does two things. Not only are you trying to get pregnant, but your body's going to have to be in a capable manner to raise a child. And so what does it do? It slows down aging rapidly. And there's some very, very powerful benefits to this. Your skin starts to look better. It gives you more energy. You can have massive anti-aging benefits. So every time you have an orgasm, you actually fight illness. It releases natural T killer cells. It fights pain. So it's a natural painkiller. It fights depression. It's a natural antidepressant. This is science. It also releases hormones like serotonin and oxytocin, which we're going to talk about in a minute. It reduces anxiety, can even reduce having heart attacks, and it gets you better sleep. And an FYI, if this works even if it's a DYI. So it's such a powerful anti-aging prospect. And they said, look, the average person takes 4.5 minutes to have an orgasm. So this doesn't take a lot of time out of your day. But what it does is it makes you more aware of, hey, if I balance my hormones, I could have my sexual health come back. And these are some powerful, potent things that can work for my body.
Okay, you talked about oxytocin and kind of led into our next question. So, oxytocin is a hormone. It's sometimes referred to as the love hormone or the bonding hormone. Um, During these times where our hormones are fluctuating, like menopause, we can lose that. And so, tell us what the benefits of oxytocin are and some of the effects that you might have if it's low.
Yes, I love that you called it the love hormone because it most certainly is. And everybody assumes you have to have a partner to get it. So, oxytocin is a hormone and it's a neurotransmitter. And like estrogen, we have receptors throughout our entire body. But there is, again, huge health and anti-aging benefits to this love hormone. It lowers cortisol for stress and anxiety. It helps you feel safe in your environment. It calms the sympathetic nervous system. It lowers blood pressure. It boosts your immune system. It reduces depression and it strengthens your social and romantic connections. And not just with your romantic partner, but also with your children, the people in your environment, your pets, the people that you love, your family. But look, low oxytocin has some really negative side effects to the body. It's linked to depression. It's linked to loneliness, despair, irritability. Sounds like some of the things of perimenopause and menopause, anxiety, and also isolation. And I want to kind of ring on this point for a minute because there's a lot of women who are going through perimenopause and menopause who are just like, I don't want to be around people anymore. I just want to kind of go into my own little cave. I want to kind of stay distant. And that could be a real, like, make that as an alarm bell to say, hey, maybe I'm low in oxytocin. So as our stress goes up, this love hormone rapidly goes down.
So, we've talked about why it's low and how it's low. Can you give us some tips on how do we increase the production of oxytocin on our own?
Yeah, this is really fun to do the research because I'm like, oh my gosh, every woman needs to know that they can do some of these things themselves. So estrogen is known to increase oxytocin production and the number of receptors. So again, balancing our hormones is critical, right? We want to get our estrogen levels back up. But things like physical touch, holding hands, petting your pets can increase oxytocin. Going and getting a massage. So now you have an excuse to go get a massage. A 20-second hug releases a flood of oxytocin to both the male and the female, or your children, or even your pets. Both of you get the benefit of it for 20 seconds. A 10-second kiss. There was a study that showed men who hug their wives every day before going to work live 4 years longer. So there's some powerful links to like longevity with this one activity, sexual intimacy, quality time with your friends, family, community, right? Community and helping others. Who would think that kindness is, one of the greatest ways to increase, increase giving compliments, increasing oxytocin in your life, right? That's a beautiful thing. Dancing, mindfulness, prayer, breathing exercises like yoga will help you actually balance and regulate oxytocin levels. So you want to think play, pleasure, presence. Those are kind of the three things that you want to have a takeaway. What are those things like? Who would know that, look, playing every day is going to help make you look younger and feel better?
Oh, I love those. And thanks so much for sharing all of that. It was a rapid fire call. We learned so much information in such a short time. And that's why I love these episodes that I do with you. That's a wrap for today. And we hope you will join us next week as we bring up a new topic and talk about hormones. Thank you so much, Amber, for being here.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's such an important conversation.